to a test tube salicylic acid plus methanol is taken, full stop. To it concentrated H2SO4 is given, is added. There will be no observation, but smell of iodex comes out. Now you will have to write the reaction. This is actually methyl salicylate. This is actually methyl salicylate. Okay. Now this is actually a direct test of methanol. That is, direct means in this test we don't have to convert methanol to any other compounds so that we can perform the test. But in the next step, that is silver mirror test, we will have to convert methanol into formic acid. Okay, that's why it's an indirect test. So don't you ever write this distinguishing test when you are given, write or distinguish between methanol and formic acid. If you are given distinguish between methanol and formic acid, don't you ever write silver mirror test, because both will give silver mirror test. What will be your answer? That is, in case of formic acid, silver mirror test will be positive. Okay, but in case of no, if you are given distinguish between methanol and formic acid, you should write oil of wintergreen test. Why? Because formic acid will never undergo oil of wintergreen test, but methanol responds to it. Okay. Now let me explain. Actually, I have in hurry. I have said it earlier, but you should understand when I will explain the silver mirror test. Okay. Now listen. So now we will be talking about the indirect test of methanol, that is silver mirror test. Okay, we will be talking about indirect test of methanol. Okay, that is, now we will be talking about indirect test of methanol. That is what? That is silver mirror test. Now listen. In this test, we will have to convert CH3OH into HCOOH. How can we convert? Directly K2Cr2O7 in concentrated H2SO4, right? Strong oxidizing agent. Now this HCOOH now reacts with silver nitrate, and NH3. Listen, this actually gives metallic silver. As precipitate, which sticks to the side of the glass test tube and gives out H2O plus CO2. This test is nothing but Tollens test. This test is nothing but Tollens test. We'll talk about Tollens reagent, we'll talk about Tollens test in detail in aldehydes and ketones, don't worry. For the time being, you understand this is actually Tollens reagent because AgNO3 is there and NH3 is there. This is Tollens reagent and this is Tollens test, okay? So this is the indirect test where we'll have to at first oxidize methanol to formic acid and then formic acid will give the test, okay, right? Now it's a very good discussion till now. Now we'll end up this discussion using some basic questions which come in the exam. Now listen, we'll start with distinguish between this type of thing and then we will convert some basic things and then our discussion up to this point is finished and next day we will start talking about dihydric alcohols and trihydric alcohols, that is glycols and what? Glycerol, okay? Glycols and glycerol. Now listen, now we'll now pack up by solving some stereotypic questions which comes in the exam, by solving some stereotypic questions which come in the exam, that is, listen, these are the basic stereotypic questions which come in the exam, that is distinguish between number 1 methanol and ethanol, methanol and ethanol, okay? Now listen with all your attention, now listen. Methanol undergoes what? Oil of Wintergreen test. Methanol undergoes what? Oil of Wintergreen test. Now listen. Sorry, ethanol also undergoes oil of Wintergreen test. Listen, sorry. We'll talk about this, but okay, don't worry. Now, what is the basic difference between ethanol and methanol, right? Now listen. The basic difference is iodoform. We'll have to talk about iodoform test here. Okay? Methanol doesn't have ketomethyl group. Doesn't have ketomethyl group. Therefore, methanol will never undergo iodoform test. That is negative. But ethanol, when oxidized, ethanol will be oxidized to acetaldehyde, and acetaldehyde is CH3CO group, that is ketomethyl group. Therefore, it will undergo what? Iodoform test. What is the reaction? Now listen, this forms a precipitate, this iodoform forms a precipitate and it is yellow in color. Okay, this is yellow in color, light yellow colored precipitate, light yellow colored precipitate. Now there is no. Now we will talk about how to distinguish between chloroform and methanol. Now we will talk about how to distinguish between chloroform and methanol. Now listen, ethanol and methanol is a very, very interesting thing, but listen with all your attention. Now we'll talk about how to distinguish methanol and chloroform. Whenever we are talking about distinguish, then you should understand that we will have to give one test which is positive for methanol and other test which is negative for ethanol, and again we will have to give one test which is negative for methanol and positive for ethanol. That means there should be two tests in which the first reagent, the first substrate should not react, and second substrate should react, and in the second state, in the second reaction, the first substrate should not react and second substrate should react. Now, in case of methanol and chloroform, we will see that there are actually two tests. Okay, there are actually what? Two tests. That is, suppose this is methanol. Okay. So